Welcome to Dare, the show for innovators, entrepreneurs, and startup leaders who dare to shape the future. Your hosts today are Ned Hayes and Cecilia Mariani. Dare is brought to you by Darwaf, the superpower tech team that can make your vision a reality. The Dare Show is happy to welcome Todd Tibbetts. He bills himself as a professional creative person. He's been doing creative direction, branding, marketing, and app and online design for many companies over the years, as varied as the NFL, CBS, Sinclair, Microsoft, Boeing, T-Mobile, and many more. Todd started way back in the early web days as designer for the Whole Earth catalog, and then he launched mountainzone.com. That was the very first online news source for outdoor sports. And that carried through to his work later with visionary leaders like Paul Allen, as well as interviews with celebrities like Mike Tyson. So recently, Todd has been working deeply in generative AI and related tech. So over his 30 years as a creative director, he has seen it all and then some. So welcome, Todd.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here. I appreciate it.
Welcome to the Dare podcast, Todd. So what does it mean to be a professional creative person?
Yes, I have struggled, like many people in this industry, to tell people what I do for a living. It was many years before my mom understood what I do. And I called myself a creative, like many of us do. But then I started saying I'm a creative person. We are doing human-centered design. And then I added the word professional in front of it because I wanted to distinguish between art and design. You know, there's that saying, artists ask questions and designers solve problems. And I am a problem solver using creativity. So I decided to go with that. I wanted to say professional so people just think I was, doing crazy stuff.
Right. And speaking of crazy stuff, you consistently seem to be launching new ideas and new products at the kind of leading edge. Some call it the bleeding edge of technology. Is that fair?
I think so. I think it has accidentally become my specialty. And it's sometimes a little grueling or tiring. And especially with AI and all the new technologies in 2023, it seems like the cutting edge changes each month now, whereas it used to be changing every year. And so it allows me to get clients and to work on interesting projects if I stay on the cutting edge, although that is becoming harder and harder as we go forward.
Yeah, so tell us more. What's a favorite early idea you saw that you helped turn into the product?
Yes. There was many fun projects, and I think maybe the success of the project is not necessarily the successful projects are not the projects that are necessarily the most fun. Sometimes the ones that crash and burn are more fun to work on. We'll probably talk about it because Ned mentioned it with Paul Allen, but there was some technologies that we worked on that we tried to turn into products that didn't really succeed, but were super fun. For example, there was one called Overheard, which was an app that recorded sounds after they happened. What? Yes. If for those technology people in the audience, it was obvious we were recording at all times. And when you press the button, perhaps your child spoke her first words or your dog made a funny sound, you could press the button and keep that sound. And but marketing was tough to talk about. This billionaire wants to put a microphone in your pocket and record at all times. It didn't take off, but it was fun to explore the possible.
Right. Well, speaking of exploring the possible, I mean, way back in the early internet days, you were the president and co-founder of mountainzone.com, right? So
Yes.
back then, I mean, people weren't really sure if this internet thing would take off. So what risks did you dare to take then? What did you dare to do differently?
Yeah, well, that was a project and a company that clicked, right? It's sometimes you put a group of people together and you have a few basic ideas and something can take off. And that one was a perfect storm of good vibes. And I think it worked because although we were focusing on new technology, this was at the turn of the century, or as my students say, "Oh, Todd, that was in the 1900s." And so a lot of the technology on the web was new, but I think the thing that worked was something traditional, which we were calling community at the time. And virtual community was really the precursor to social media. And I think having an audience of outdoor enthusiasts, people who like to ski and camp and hike and mountain climb, we suddenly brought this group of people together in a forum that they never had before. They could talk to the weird mountain climbers who like to hang off a rock, who are often solo individuals. Suddenly there's a community of it.
Mhm.
So we were able to explore the new technologies of communication and video and audio, but we had this traditional connection. All the people really wanted to be there. So that was a help.
Yeah, so you dare to imagine the future of the internet. And here we are today. It's amazing to see this come true. So when you were at mountainzone.com, what was the most exciting experience you had there?
Yeah, there was a lot of fun. Well, speaking of climbers, so we did broadcasts, or we were calling them cybercasts. I just remembered that. Yeah, cybercasts. And so we were going to sporting events and broadcasting to the internet. At first, it was text. Some of it was audio. Then we started to do some early video. And we decided, let's try to cybercast from one of the remote locations. And we chose Mount Everest. And we got a team together. I stayed home. I did not climb. We sent a professional climbing team with laptops and satellite phones and all this gear. And this was 98,
Wow.
97.
This is way back before people were cybercasting from their phones, right?
Right. Exactly. People didn't really understand. We first had to explain what it was. People knew the internet, but they didn't really know what was happening in all corners of the internet. We wanted to follow the path of George Mallory, who was famously quoted as, somebody asked him, "Why do you climb mountains?" He said, "Because it's there." And he was the first to reach the peak, but some climbers say it doesn't really count because he never made it back. He went up and then he disappeared. And one morning I received a phone call during the expedition, and it was the leader. And he said to me, "We found Mallory." And I said, "What?" And he said, "We found the body of George Mallory." And within 2 hours, literally, we had CBS News, ABC News, and CNN and other news organizations at our front door, ready for interviews. And they found George Mallory with a camera. And we tried to thaw out the film and process it, and it basically turned to dust instantly.
Wow.
But we found clues, so that was exciting. And that went from a niche to suddenly the world knew about this. And it was very grainy, postage size video. But I sometimes look at my career as before Mallory and after Mallory. And
right, because you definitely lit up headlines around the world with that one.
so true. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it opened up other opportunities,
Right. And some of those opportunities eventually led you to work with Paul Allen, the co-founder of Microsoft, the Allen Brain Institute, founder of StratoLaunch. And StratoLaunch, for those who don't know, created much of the tech that's now used by Elon Musk at SpaceX. And he was also owner of the Seattle Seahawks. So a pretty amazing guy. What was it like to work right alongside Paul Allen and work for him?
It was exciting and nerve-wracking. And at any moment, you never really knew where Paul was, or if he was going to be in a meeting, or if he was on his yacht somewhere. So there was
or maybe on his submarine, right? He had a submarine off of his yacht, right?
Yes, although I have to correct you. It was a submersible. He corrected me one time. It's not a submarine, it's a submersible. Okay, I'll go look that up. I'll look it up later on the internet and find out the difference. It's basically a little smaller. But yeah, it was very exciting. As you describe him, as someone who lives in Seattle, I knew of him. I had heard of Microsoft, and he was at the time the 7th richest person in the world. And so I found it super exciting, and he was a no-nonsense fellow, right? And Ned, you may remember this. There was points with you'd go to a meeting and you arrive in the conference room, and at the end of the table was a laptop, and connected to the laptop by a wire was a mouse, and there was a Diet Coke on a coaster. That was the sign that at any moment Paul would come in and sit at that seat. And I had attended large meetings of like 50 people and Paul. And then I had attended a meeting with 10 people and Paul. And then one day, unbeknownst to me, my boss said, "We're going to meet with Paul." And it was just me and my boss and Paul. I call him Paul. And that was unusual. And I had to do a design presentation. And I guess that one of the things I learned from him was no nonsense, get to the point, don't waste time. This is a very busy person. Sometimes it can feel a little rude. It was, I'm sure, rude, where it's just get down to business. So he would walk in the room, sit in his chair, take his mouse with the cord and say, "Go." And that's how the meeting started. A 2-letter word, go. And I remember, I guess one other anecdote is when I presented design to him the first time as a creative, this is what we do. We get critique. I tell my students, your job will be to make things and to listen to people tell you what's wrong with it. That is my job. And so I presented an app interface, and I wasn't sure if he was even looking. He was typing, he was drinking his Diet Coke, clicking on his mouse with the cord. And then he looked up and said, "What makes you think this looks good?" And I look back on it, I was a little startled. It could be interpreted multiple ways. Did he mean, "This looks like crap, why do you think it looks good?" Or was he just saying, "Tell me the reasons you think this is a successful design"? And I think it was somewhere in between. And I think he knew that ambiguity would set people off balance and put him in the power position. And that certainly worked with that. And I stumbled a little bit. And then I described user experience. It's not that I think it looks good. It's the people who will pay us money for this app. We've asked them. They think it looks good. And it was the best reaction I ever got from him. He went, and that was it. It was good. He was satisfied. It wasn't even a word. It was just a grunt, but it was special to me.
Well, that is awesome. It seems that working with Paul is great. So can you tell us more? Can you tell us about one great insight, more ideas that you learned from Paul Allen?
Yes. I can. There was so much going on there. And I think it goes to the theme of what we've been talking about here, cutting edge technology. What I didn't realize before that in my career is how much experimentation goes on. You know, sometimes you see a successful idea and you think that sprung out of nowhere, but we really know logically that there was probably 100 failed ideas before that. And what's the saying? It only took me 30 years to become an overnight success. And you know, it's all the work that you do leading up to it. So Mr. Allen would purchase companies, and he would purchase a company that had a certain technology he wanted, and he would take that technology and integrate it into his companies. But often what would happen is that piece of the company he wanted was only a small part of it. And each of these companies had their own research and development going on. So it was my job to look at the pile of extras and side projects and see what was valuable in it. And it started for me, the idea that we can have these side projects, we can create things without really any idea about what it might do in the future, but that it's interesting and it seems to have value and it seems to have utility. And so we'd take this technology and see if we could turn it into a product, you know, and it's out of probably 36 of these app projects, there was 2 or 3 that really became, you know, products that were used by, you know, when we would release it, if 200 people used it, that wasn't a success. But if thousands were using it actively for a period of time, we felt that was a success, and we could, you know, build on that. So yeah, don't ever throw away those ideas. Just
right
back drawer.
Well, I do know that one of the ideas you worked on used something called natural language processing, and that became kind of a suite of products. And those were actually the early pieces of what eventually grew into being today's AI, generative AI. So can you back up a little bit and explain to us what natural language processing was and how it works? I mean, it's still around, right?
Yes, and I will describe it from a creative's standpoint, which you have technologists on this podcast. They will tell you more about the technology, but that's actually one aspect, is that much of this technology spans the 2 sides of the brain, you know, the left and right side of the brain, maybe a creative side and a technical side. And I felt that as creative director, it was my job to be, what do they call it? The corpus callosum, which is that part between the 2 brains. So this question that you just asked is really what is behind that technology. I was asking the developers that and trying to understand what makes it so special. And so natural language processing was paired with semantic analysis. So a computer that can analyze words and extract some kind of meaning and then process that language. And if you remember, in those days, we were actually scolded when we called it AI, because it, you know, now we call it, we've gotten over that hurdle, but it's not true general AI, a machine that can think like a human. It was really machine learning was the category that we said we were in. And parts of that were semantic analysis and natural language processing. But we had an ultimate goal, which was to understand user intent. So what is the intent of the user? If we can understand what they want, what they are trying to do, then we can maybe get in front of that and suggest an option for them. And maybe we can even suggest an option before they know that they need it.
So you were understanding intent you mentioned of the communication, right?
Yeah.
So what was the purpose of that analysis, or what was the product?
Yeah. Great question, because we were asked many times. There was months, perhaps a year of not being able to answer that question that you just asked. And we had the great thing about working for a billionaire who wanted these answers was that he would fund it. And so we started with a very crazy idea, which we called the big red button. And the idea being, you open an app and you press a button and the app will tell you what to do, what to do next. Now, we even started to say, well, do we even need a button? You don't really have to press the button. But the idea is, if we understand intent, then we can do things that are starting to become common nowadays, such as, we know you're at work, we know you're heading home, we know you need gasoline, so you should take a different route home, because you can get the cheap gas at the Costco, because we have all this data coming in, we're processing it, we understand the intent of the user, we can start to not only suggest what they might do next, but we can pair that with commerce and we can pair that with partners who want to get in front of customers who have a particular intent. And we tried to be very above board with it. It was, at the time, very spooky. It's still spooky, that a machine knows this stuff. This was before Siri and any of that. And so we tried to be very transparent. I'm not so
Right.
sure there's transparency nowadays.
Right. Cecilia and I actually worked on a product for a while that we kind of called a time machine, because we could understand the past, understand the present, and then predict the future. Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's very much the wheelhouse that you were working in, right?
Yes. Yeah. And it really spoke to user experience for me. The term user experience, well, we're kind of stuck with it, but people also call it human-centered design. It's not understanding machines, it's understanding the people, and then using the machines to communicate and sometimes manipulate people and to put things in their path. And, I think when creative people and technical people work together, there was a lot more solutions that were coming out that were of higher quality, because we could think in both those worlds. And so I spent many years in stand-ups, so software development morning stand-ups, where we stood in a circle and went through what was happening. And I could understand most of it. I could understand when developers were having an issue. I didn't quite fully understand what the issue was. But I think when designers and developers do that, then you get a more robust, more human-centered solution.
So recently, you've been doing a lot of work with this new generation of AI. So what's exciting to you about AI as it stands today?
Wow, it's amazing. Yeah. And I will say more than just the word amazing, because I've heard that people are blown away. It's almost hard to talk about, but the advantages for someone like me, a professional creative person, I have a one-man business. I sometimes team up with other agencies and things, but with AI, and this is what I'm doing with my clients now, with AI, it's like I have a bunch of interns working for me, and I can move faster. I can brainstorm faster, and the level of control that is starting to happen, like the ability to steer the AI, which has been missing, but it's starting to come in more and more. Suddenly I realize my person of one, my company of one, can now do the work of more people. There was, who said it? I think this quote is attributed to the investor Zane Khan, who said, AI will not replace you. A person using AI will replace you. And I really feel that. is that I have this advantage, this leg up, because I have this team of digital interns running around doing my bidding. And, as with interns, it's maybe not the highest quality work, and you have to edit it and you have to pick and choose. But here's 100 ideas in 3 seconds. Thank you very much, AI. I will take these 2 ideas.
Uh-huh.
That is amazing, isn't it? But what are the risks or downsides of AI? Do you see any problem in the future?
Oh, it'll all be fine. Well, maybe not. Maybe the destruction of humanity, or maybe not. Yeah, just as we're recording this podcast, there are professionals in Washington, D.C., CEOs of companies talking to Congress, describing the risks. And I think there's the risks that we all kind of feel, things like deep fakes, where is this video really a video of the person I think it is? That is a risk. And there's also a deeper risk, I think, with creative people. Like, I teach my students fundamentals, things like composition, color theory, and really things that have not changed for many years because they are the fundamentals. I do see some young folks who are not learning the fundamentals because the AI has just been trained on the fundamentals. So why learn it? So my fear, although I think we will avoid this, my fear is that we train the AI and then pretty soon we stop feeding it more human knowledge because the humans aren't doing anymore and it's all the computer. I don't think we'll get there because I think there's enough of a backlash. Or the one thing that the AI does not have is intent. So with art, I love all kinds of art, and some of my favorite artists are not the best technically. Like, they are not Renaissance painters, but their intent and their idea and their vision behind this art is what's exciting. And, so you see a lot of people online using AI, and what they do is say, show me a picture of Elon Musk on a horse on Mars. Ha 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 ha. And that's the extent. But if there is an intent from the artist and the artist uses AI, they could use popsicle sticks or toothpicks to make art. And if their intent and their vision is there, then I think that it becomes art. So I think there's still a place for humans in this creative world.
Yeah, I got it. So you sound well informed. You work with a lot of clients today. Everyone from Microsoft to the NFL have used your services. Do your clients understand the pros and cons of AI?
Some do. Almost all my clients, since this summer, I think, summer of 23, all my clients ask me about it. And there is different levels of knowledge. Some don't really want to know. I'll give you one example. One thing I do in user experience is user personas. And we really want to find out our target market. Who is our user? And so we make up these fake people called personas. And in the past, I've probably done this with Ned for some client, and years ago in our past, we want to show an image that represents this persona. And so I've done photo shoots where we have to get a photography studio. We have to get some actors and models, and we take the photos, we process the photos, we edit the photos. And then that photo gets used in the persona document. I just created a whole set of personas. And although it put the photographer in me out of business, because I used AI instead of a photo shoot. So I see pros and cons in that. For me, it allowed me to literally turn that around in a morning and have it done. And in the past, it would have taken a good week or more with planning and scheduling to do a photo shoot. Great for me, great for the client. less expensive for the client, doesn't make photographer friends of mine super happy, so that's the negative. Although I know a lot of photographers who are now using things like generative fill with Adobe to augment and change photos that they took, expand the boundaries, etc. So I think a lot of the photographers who may be replaced on certain jobs are finding new work, doing different things.
Right. It goes back to what you said earlier. It's not AI will replace you. Somebody using AI will replace you because they understand how to use these tools, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And, it is a set of tools. Tools is the right word for it. And the tool set is expanding so fast. And one thing I think about is, I think in the general public, people think about text to image AI. So in other words, I type in text, a prompt, and it gives me back an image. What I tell my students and my clients is that's only one way. We also have image to image. We have image to text. We have text to video. We now have text to Figma, Figma being the design program used by UX designers. And the combination of all these, so an image to image is me taking my artwork, uploading it to the AI, and getting variations on that artwork. And then the image to text is me uploading my artwork and the AI sending me back a text prompt. And then I take that text prompt and I put it back into the AI and it creates something based on that. So I think that's where the creativity, that's where the creativity comes from. I think just typing in cat on a bicycle is fun, but then you're done. But if you take that cat on a bicycle, bring it into Photoshop, paste a head on it, and then print it out. I've done this, print it out, scribble on it, scan that back in, have the AI describe it in text, use that text as a text prompt, and then use that same text prompt in another AI that creates a different image, then use blend, and you blend those two images together. See, it becomes super complicated and unique and unreproducible.
Right. So how do you teach people to use that whole spectrum of tools that you just mentioned? I mean, what are the best techniques for really getting people up to speed on this?
Yeah, I talk about process with students and clients. It's not just tasks. You don't do a task and then you're done. It's what we call workflow. What is the workflow that gets us from one place to another? What I do in my business is take people, clients, from an idea to a product. And how do you get there? You have a process where you do some discovery, you do some research and planning, then you go and you start to ideate, and then you start to prototype, then you test it. So that process rarely changes for me. And clients who want to change their process or their workflow, I say, let's not this time. Later, if you want, you can change your process. Let's just find where AI can assist each stage of that process. Research is great. Talk to the AI, research your project, iterate. You want 100 mock-ups? Do that. Testing, there's a lot of AI ability to test. I think the people who are successful are the ones who enhance their existing workflow, and the ones who fail are the ones who think AI is going to do everything and they just abandon process.
Well, right. And as you've just shown us, you are really great teacher. So can you tell us some more about your teaching experience?
Yes. I've always worked full time, but in my extra time, of which I really don't have any, but I like to teach. I've taught courses mostly through General Assembly, which is the world's largest digital trade school, because these are trade that I'm teaching. And I've also taught through University of Washington. And I'm currently, I mentioned before we started recording that I just kicked off a new cohort of students last night. And this is through a government program called Vet Tech. It's veterans technology, and it's retraining for U.S. military who want to go into digital fields. And so there's money for that from the government to retrain these folks. And they're super smart, and they've been using computers, and they haven't been in the civilian sector, many of them. And so this is a great time to do that. AI can assist and you can learn, but really, I think what we see a lot of nowadays is two kinds of learning. There's synchronous and asynchronous. And the asynchronous is we're not all together in the same room at the same time in a classroom. I think a lot of us are doing this. If you have to fix something in your home, where do you go? You go to YouTube first. Can I fix this sink? I don't know. This guy on YouTube is telling me how. And that's the asynchronous. I think there really is something to be said for synchronous, whether it's remote or in person, when people are sitting around talking, reacting. And that's what I do mostly, is have an actual class and we meet online. I used to teach in General Assembly's classroom here in downtown Seattle. They have classrooms all over the country. And 2 days before I was going to start a cohort, I heard of coronavirus for the first time. And within a week, we were canceling the in-person and we turned it to online, and we just learned on the fly. And it worked. I was able to have students in time zones all over the world. Somebody in New Zealand, somebody in Japan, somebody in Hawaii, and people all across the US. So time zone discussions were comical.
So you need now students from Argentina also.
Yeah. And actually, I had a couple of great students from there. Yes.
Okay. Oh, that's good.
Fantastic. Well, so you've dealt with a lot of different clients. You've now taught a number of students from different backgrounds and disciplines. So are you seeing work really change for them? Are you seeing, like, for example, I've heard of teams now that are AI and 2 guys instead of a whole company or a whole development team. It's 2 people and an AI, or they're using AI to kind of complement their work. Is that kind of the future of work?
It's an interesting question. We, the studies and the research that I've seen have indicated that throughout history, we have these technological innovations, and they end up destroying certain jobs. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, all these studies show there are more jobs at the end of the technological revolution. There are more jobs for humans than there used to be. It's just a lot of them are totally new jobs. And when I teach creative folks, I in a way, maybe this is just my biases, but I think they have a better advantage in this new world. Even though the AI can generate an amazing photo or an illustration, I see it every day. The creative people are getting AI to do more creative things than the technical team. And now technical students of mine, I get students who are converting from being a software developer to being a UX designer or a graphic designer or a visual designer, because they see parts of their job being taken over by GitHub Copilot or some of these software development techniques, and they're nervous and they feel there's more protection to go in creative fields because there is still the human creativity and that intent that we've been talking about that really is driving it. So yeah, who knows what we will see. The technologies are amazing. And I think as we creatives get more and more control, again, I say that again, the control, I don't want to just type something in and have the AI decide. I want to steer it and I want to drive it to a certain place. And I think those tools are available now and will get better and better. What else?
Cecilia, I think you have a follow-up.
Okay. Yeah, so it's more about AI. So now it's a really broad question. Todd, what's the future of AI? Well, we are asking everyone, and then we will place bets on the answer. So
Yes. Oh, good. What do I win when I get it perfect?
I don't know.
We'll figure that out later. We'll ask AI.
Yeah.
So one thing, thing that excites me so much is that, I was a creative kid. I would draw and do silly projects from the time that I could even hold a pencil. And I think we are at a point where some of those dreams of wouldn't it be cool if are coming true, such as what if I could create a whole movie, just me? And you can kind of do that nowadays. I was amazed with desktop editing and cameras getting so cheap, but now you just need a laptop. Frankly, you could even do it with your phone. What if I could produce the movie in my head with just a few tools quickly? And that's what excites me. This idea of shortening the distance between concept and reality, and shortening it incredibly, because as many creative people, I have notebooks full of, sketchbooks full of ideas that may never see the light of day. But with AI, what I've started to do is say, oh, this children's book idea I had, it's been taking me a while to draw the pictures. Maybe AI will draw the pictures, and this idea can see the world, be seen by the world, be out there rather than in my sketchbook. And I guess, if I look forward even farther, I foresee a time when, I'm not a big VR person. I haven't really seen too many virtual reality applications that really click with me. But if I could have a pair of glasses that look like the glasses I'm wearing now, just regular normal eyeglasses, and I could control a virtual world, a virtual symphony, a virtual film crew, and actually say, scene one, a mountain town. No, the mountains shouldn't be that big. Okay, no, it's fall, it's autumn. Okay, no, wait, it's snowing. And it happens in real time. And I say, the character walks in. The character should be taller. No, the character should be a woman. And that will be happening. And there is so many wonderful things that will happen from that. And I suspect many terrible things will be made, not only just bad art, but manipulative deep fakes as well. But that's true with every technology, I guess. Do bad things with a hammer, I guess.
Yeah. Well, you were definitely right about mountainzone.com. So maybe we should listen to your predictions on AI too.
We shall see. Time will tell.
Yeah. So final important question. Our podcast is about people who dare to dream. What do you dare to dream, Todd? What future do you dare to imagine you're creating?
Well, one topic that I teach my students is accessibility, which in our world, that means building products that are usable by all humans, even if they have what might be termed a disability, or they don't have the same abilities as you and I. And, so when I kicked off the cohort last night, I always kick off my cohorts by saying, this is a space of inclusion and diversity and, understanding and respect. And we're going to learn about accessibility and how to create a website for colorblind people or for people of different cultures who don't understand our references. So if I was to dream, I would hope that AI could help us in that world. That the opposite end of all the negative that we hear, deep fakes and all this terrible art on the other side is using the machinery to imagine a better world. So we can all hold hands across the planet. Two of those hands will be AI. And that's the world I'd love to see, and I'll try to create.
That's a great vision. Thank you. Well, thank you for sharing your time and your insights with us today, Todd.
Sure. Thanks for having me. This is fun.
Thanks to our guests today for their great insights on Dare, the podcast for innovators, entrepreneurs, and startup leaders. If you'd like your story to be featured on Dare, just contact us at info@darwaft.com. Dare is brought to you by Darwaft, the tech team that can make your vision a reality.